For a long tail cast on, just like the name says, you need a long tail. Determining how long is a bit of a trial and error. Here, I am only going to cast on a few stitches. To start, you need to make a slip knot. So let's do that slower. Loop around, cross, and pull the yarn through the loop and tighten. Insert your needle into the loop and pull the tail to secure it. Now to cast on, hold the needle with the slip knot in your right hand, loop the long tail over your thumb and the working yarn over your finger, feeding both pieces through your hand like this. Then you're going to go under the thumb, over the finger, and pull through. Don't drop the yarn here, just use your thumb to tighten the loop on your needle. And again, under, over, pull through, and tighten. And keep repeating that. If you can manage to hold on to the yarn and not let go every time, the cast on process becomes pretty quick. We now have 5 stitches on our needle. The slip knot counts as the first stitch. I'm going to cast on about 12. So I have 12 stitches cast on, and now I'm going to knit across. So the working yarn goes into the back, and I like to weave the working yarn between my fingers, like so. Slide the stitches close to the end of the needle. Insert the needle left to right. Wrap the yarn and pull through the hole. Sometimes I have to use my right index finger to help keep the yarn on the needle to scoop it. Now I saw a good meme that had a really good way of remembering the steps. That was stab it, strangle it, scoop out the guts, throw it off a cliff. Now I just can't unhear that while I knit. Stab, strangle, scoop out the guts, throw it off a cliff. Now watch my middle finger on my left hand. It holds the loop on my needle so I can open it up and scoop the yarn through without that loop falling off my needle. This is a good little trick. If your stitches keep slipping off, hold those loops on there with your middle finger. So there's 12 knit stitches. Now we're going to turn and purl across. The purl stitch is very similar to the knit, but with a few differences. The working yarn is held in front of the work. I still hold my needles and the yarn the same way. And now instead of inserting the right needle like a knit from left to right, we're going to insert it right to left through the front of the stitch. Scoop the yarn and bring it through. So from right to left, wrap the yarn and scoop it through. My trick here is the slightest wrist rotation in my left wrist. I rotate slightly to help hold the yarn on the needle, and the right needle kind of points down to hold onto that yarn and pull through and off the left needle. This little trick with the wrist rotation, pointing the needle down, that's going to help your purl stitch go a little bit quicker as well when you get into the groove. And there we go. So here's the knit side, or the right side usually, and here's the purl side or wrong side. Now for a knit two together or a decrease stitch. This is decreasing the amount of stitches on your needle by 1. So I'm just going to knit the first stitch. And for a knit two together, we are going to knit through these 2 stitches. Insert needle the same direction as normal, but through both stitches. Wrap the working yarn around the right needle and pull through. And now we've made 1 stitch out of those 2 stitches. So you can see the 2 stitches together there. And again, you want to insert the needle through both stitches, wrap the yarn, and pull through both. Now we have decreased 2 stitches. I'll show you one more time. And that is your knit 2 together. Now the other decreased stitch is purl 2 together. So I'll just purl that first stitch, which again, it's very similar to the purl stitch and the knit 2 together stitch. The working yarn is going to go in the front. Then we're going to go through both stitches, needle right to left and through the front. Wrap the yarn and pull through. Slide the 1 stitch off your left needle onto your right, and you have purled 2 stitches into 1. The slight wrist rotation is helpful here as well. You can see I'm still doing the same motion as just a normal purl. You're just going through 2 loops on the needle instead of 1. Now we're going to do some increase stitches. This is going to be a make 1 right or M1R. Again, I'm just going to knit the first stitch here. Then we're going to grab this bar in between the stitches. Left needle goes in from the back and lifts the bar onto the needle. Now the right needle is going to knit that stitch as normal. Just like so. So now you have made 1 right or M1R because it will slant this way or to the right. For an increased stitch, make one left, or M1L. We're going to do it on this other side. So with one stitch left remaining on my needle, we are going to grab that bar in between the stitches, but the needle is lifting the bar through the front. Now we're going to knit this stitch through the back loop. Wrap the yarn and pull it through. Knit the last stitch and then make one L and make one left, or M1L goes to the left or that way. And the M1R goes the other way. So this is just going to fan out. So let's say you're at the end of your project and it is time to bind off. We're going to hold the yarn the same way as a knit stitch. Knit the first stitch. And then knit the second stitch, keeping these stitches loose. Pull the loops up a little bit. Now there's 2 stitches on your right needle. You're going to lift the first stitch, the one furthest from your work, over top of the stitch you just knit. Like this. This is why it's important to keep this nice and loose. That's 1 stitch bound off. For the next stitch to bind off, we're going to knit and lift the stitch over the last stitch you just knit. And pull up a little bit so that these stitches are a little bit looser, just so when you pull them over top of each other, the work isn't too tight. And there we are, 3 stitches bound off. So I'll just continue across until we get to the last stitch. Now that we're at the end, we have 1 more stitch left. We're going to knit the last stitch, and you guessed it, lift that stitch over the last one. And we've got 1 more loop. So there is our bind off edge. It's looking nice and neat, not too tight. Here's where you would cut a 6 to 8 inch tail. For this example, I'm just going to keep my little ball of yarn. Pull your loop up and feed your tail through the loop and pull tight, and that's it. That's all you got to do. Then with your long tail, you're going to weave in the ends. There you go.